One of the biggest things is the movement from news being largely broadcast media mediated to decentralized media mediated, which was the internet, and then not just the internet, but the large internet information curation platforms, Facebook in particular, but also YouTube and various other ones. It's important to understand why this is such a big deal, is all of our global institutions evolved in the context of broadcast media, right? From the printing press through the telegram to the radio to the TV, it was still a small number of groups being able to have some narrative on what's true and be able to broadcast it and everybody get that. Now, of course, that means it was susceptible to very centralized control and capture, but at least when everybody was watching CNN, they at least all saw the same base reality. They could agree or disagree, maybe they were informed or misinformed, but there was at least some basis of what they were being exposed to. Because right now, people are really riled up over issues that they have no on-the-ground knowledge of, right? Like they weren't on the ground where the shooting was, they weren't in Beirut, they aren't in North Korea. So their sense of what's going on is mediated through the media, right? Through what's coming through this kind of 2D screen. And so there was in broadcast at least a sense of shared base information about the world beyond my own experience, my own direct experience. As soon as we started to get to, and you know, the internet, there was this very libertarian, beautiful idea that it would democratize broadcast. So rather than a few billionaires being able to control broadcast, you could go to YouTube and everybody could broadcast. And so it would democratize the ability to share information. And then if it was true that we had a kind of a market of rational actors who would parse the information and upregulate the signal of the best stuff, wouldn't that be awesome? Of course, nearly the exact opposite thing happened because so much broadcast gets put up that I Google something and I get 1 billion search results for anything. Well, I can never read through 1 billion search results to be a rational actor and make sense of that entire space, nor can I do the deep parsing on any one of those things. So then, of the 1 billion search results, which ones do I actually see? That became one of the big problems, was how do we curate the content to show people the stuff that they want to see? Well, now that starts to become a big problem. So you get something like Facebook, for instance, having a tremendous amount of ability to harvest very particular information about me that is unique to me, not just even a demographic. Whereas the broadcast news on a TV didn't have that. It could tell if I turned it on or turned it off, and that was about it. But I wasn't interacting with it in a way that could give them a tremendous amount of personalized micro-targeting information. But now I'm on Facebook, and what I like and what I share and what I comment on, what my mouse hovers over, the analytics of all of that are such that after I've done about 300 likes, Facebook can predict what I will like better than my spouse. And after I've gone further, it actually has a psychographic profile on me that is asymmetric to anything that any human, CIA agent or whatever, could have ever had previously. And that was co-occurring with I'm carrying my cell phone around all the time that is both tracking stuff that I'm doing and using notifications to give me a continuous feed. So there's a radical increase in the amount of input into my mind space and the amount of data being harvested about me across platforms to be able to micro-target of those 1 billion things, which ones I should see. Now, it happens to be that we think of Facebook or YouTube or whatever as a tool, but it is actually a corporate interest that has agency that is not just a tool. And so those corporations make money by selling advertising, selling information, and they sell more advertising by maximizing my engagement and maximizing my time on site. Well, I don't want to spend that much time scrolling Facebook because I have shit to do. So if I stay in my kind of prefrontal rational cortex, I will check it real quickly and then go because I have stuff to do. But I'll spend more time if I get limbically hijacked, if I get into social FOMO of like, am I going to miss out on what's happening, or if I get outraged or scared or whatever it is. So, and I'm also not going to spend as much time on stuff that is totally foreign to me as stuff that I already know is important. So what happens is the AI that is paying attention to what I engage with the most, that is curating all of the information on Facebook or the internet to me, is curating what is stickiest. And what is stickiest is very much like Foods that are addictive are usually bad for you. Salad's not that addictive. French fries are much more addictive. Information that is maximally sticky is usually actually because it is appealing to dopaminergic hijacks. So what it curates for is a combination of bias and limbic hijack, which is outrage, group identity, and certainty. And so now what we have is a situation where, because there's so much stuff, so much total stuff online, the curation platforms, and it's important to understand that the AIs that are doing that are radically more powerful than the AI that several years ago beat Kasparov at chess. Like a much more powerful game theoretic AI than that is controlling the information feed of what I believe to try to maximize stickiness. And I don't even realize I'm playing that game, right? So this is an asymmetric information warfare that is unlike the asymmetry that ever could exist in the past. This is so many orders of magnitude more asymmetric. And so I might have someone who is in Oakland who they look on their Facebook feed and they just see cops killing black people, like their whole Facebook feed is this, and people who are recognizing it and outraged by it, and then kind of what looks like Klan and Nazi members, and because that actually maximizes their time on site and their sharing and engagement, that maximizes other people's time on site. And I might have somebody in Texas, Trump supporting, and all they see is people wrongly attacking cops and black on black violence and black on white violence. And both of these people are getting vicariously traumatized by what they're seeing, to the point that they're having trauma reactions and they feel like it's a war zone and they have to pick up arms and go out into the street. And neither of them are getting statistical representation of the entire space, right? And I can scroll for an hour and I just keep seeing more of it. So it seems like it's everything. So everybody's getting increased certainty, outrage, trauma, and wider apart from each other, right? This is actually really important, where those two people, I might be able to scroll through both of their news feeds for 10 hours and not find a single piece of news in common. So the opposite of everybody seeing CNN, now it seems certain that all the people that I know think like me, and all the people that seem like they're making sense think like me, and the only version of the other I get is a pejorative, straw man, or villainized version. Well, of course, that tool by itself will break democracy, break republics, break the social fabric of civilization. It is, like when we talk about AI risk, we're already dealing with AI risk that is destroying the fabric of civilization and driving all these other issues as second and third order effects. So that's a critical thing to understand. That's not the only thing that is current, but that's both the emergence of the internet and everyone being able to broadcast where there's no quality control. In the news before, there could be bad stuff, but there was at least some accountability of who it was, right? It was CNN or the BBC. So if they got something really wrong, there was at least some FTC or whatever that had quality control. Now, no quality control, but radical amplification type possibilities. Radical information about everyone to personally micro-target them, to limbically hijack. And the cell phone, right? The continuous both monitoring and drip. That's the technological landscape change. Simultaneous to that, we also see that because of globalization and the extent of globalization, the issues that we're facing are more complex and more abstract than the issues we evolved to be able to face. So tribes didn't have to think about climate change and positive feedback effects on hydrological cycles in the Amazon and albedo effect or grid stability. Like, these are huge, and they're hyperobjects, which means an object I can see with my senses. A hyperobject I can only conceptualize. I can't see climate change. I can see snow melt here. But snow melt here is very different than the abstract concept of climate change and positive albedo effect. The same with, like, I can see a weapon, but I can't see nuclear risk writ large, right? I can't see the information ecology writ large. So I can understand it, but we kind of didn't evolve to do that well. So we have to train ourselves to do it well, or we won't. So we have a situation where all the biggest problems are hyperobjects. They're very complex, and they're interconnections of hyperobjects, and we're not trained at all for how to do that. That's another thing, right? So the issues are authentically more complex. The information ecology is oriented to bias reinforcement and limbic hijack. Bias reinforcement because I'm more likely to click on something that sounds important to me than something that sounds foreign to me. Sounds important means appeals to my existing understanding and value systems. So that inherently does bias reinforcement, even without the intention to do so, right? And so it's not trying to drive political polarization, it's trying to drive profit and maximize time on site, and political polarization and radicalization just happens to be a second-order effect. Simultaneous to this is once you already have a media environment where people are having much more radicalized views, where it's so complex they give up on being able to sense make it themselves, so that everyone kind of becomes an epistemic nihilist to some degree and chooses tribalism instead without even realizing they're doing that. Like, what is the group that I want to be part of that seems more like me? What are the leaders that I just have a felt sense of trust in more? In that environment, it's also way easier for actors who want to do narrative warfare to do it.